Okay, this is my week 4 work in progress video. The related work for this week is going to start with a video by Mariel Cartwright, the animator of Skullgirls, talking at GDC. And this has been kind of useful for me this week because I've kind of used the animation principles and themes to go back to when I've been stuck or struggling, um, in particular to show personality from the characters' movements. And it's just good to go back and listen to a clear and concise explanation of how these techniques can be used to exaggerate your animation and kind of bring the personality out of it. So just here, when she's talking about anticipation, this is really useful for me because I've trying to animate the punch and also the reaction to it, the ducking motion for the character. I wanted to show that there was more of a sense of fun to that character's movement than the more kind of business-like punch being thrown by the other character. So she also talks about follow through here, which I kind of use this week, as we'll see later when I talk about the work I've done this week on the character's hair and some of their clothing, and this just really helps sell the fluidity and weight of the movement, which is something that was lacking from the last week in the sketches. So just going through this lecture this week and kind of brushing up on these techniques has really helped me kind of studiously flesh out what I want to achieve in these scenes. Just the principles I think were a little lacking last week. The final point of hers I'm going to highlight is when she talks about maximizing frames, which in this instance is in relation to working in video games, and of course keeping the file sizes down. But in this instance, in my example, it's actually useful because I'm trying to keep the scope down. I don't want to be drawing, inking and coloring 24 plus frames, 30 plus frames. So the techniques that she talks about in this video and ways that you can kind of maximize your keys to work smarter, I guess, instead of harder, has been really useful for me this week. The other related work I want to talk about is to do with camera movement. I've kind of been watching tutorials and learning how to use the 3D camera in Toon Boom. I'm not too familiar with Toon Boom, so it's kind of a process of learning the software as I learn how to use this camera. But this is going to be particularly effective for me in the establishing shot for the scene. I think I can make it look more dynamic. You see here in this video the way that he's moving the scene around. It kind of, the buildings kind of have that traditional cell kind of movement to them. Reminds me of maybe the opening shot of Akira in the city, and that's kind of the effect that I want, that kind of, that depth quality to the 3D camera. So this is something that I've been studying this week in the hopes of kind of pursuing further next week, and it's one of my more main focuses. Moving on to the work I've been doing this week, I can show the punch that I showed last week, which now I've kind of fleshed out with line art and some of those traditional fundamentals of animation I was talking about. So just played a few times. I've tried to add, as I said before, some more personality and expression to the character of Plum, who is kind of having more fun in this fight than the other guy who's a little undermatched. I've just tried to do that through her expressions and the way that her movement is very cartoony, whereas his is very, aside from the big smear, which is more of an action thing. You can see there the difference between the way that they're animated. She's a lot more cartoony and kind of, I guess, Tom and Jerry-esque, whereas he's very business-like. And then just, as I spoke about in that, while watching that lecture, the follow-through and the getting the sense of movement with the hair. So those are some of the principles that I've been working on this week after watching and studying my related works. The other animation I've been working on isn't as far as along due to the fact it's more complicated, but it's more about traditional 2D animation with a 3D camera. And so there's less movement in this scene, although we do get the impact of the knee and the stomach there. But I really want to get that sense of the camera kind of floating around and rotating with the hit. This will be furthered this week by my work, as I said, with Tomb Boom. I want to try and get the 3D camera to help out with this scene to really create that sense of rotation and layers. So as I said, moving forward, my production for the next week and a bit is mostly going to be focused around the 3D camera movements and really starting to integrate more post-production elements of the 3D camera in Tomb Boom and After Effects. But I also want to keep pushing the sense of expression and personality in the characters. There's some things I can do with that knee attack. I got some feedback about how I can really exaggerate that impact and push it forth, making use of the medium of animation. You know, you can exaggerate everything as long as the eye doesn't see it but feels it. It can really sell that impact and that movement. So yeah, moving forward, that's pretty much my focus. I hope to also maybe get into a bit of color theory stuff and editing to really kind of play around more with the stylization of these scenes, because that is really what I'm going for, to create this sense of incredible stylization and dynamic movement, so that when I make a longer film in the coming semesters, I can just knock this stuff out of the park and make something that comes across as being really stylized. So yeah, thank you.